Hey, team players, welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about one of those really nasty words in the world of drafting: reach. You reached on a player, you did this, that, and the other. That's what today's episode is going to be. Bob and I are going to have a deep conversation about what is an actual reach, how do you make it work, and how do you be successful in all that, coming up today on this live draft of local football flavor. Yes, indeed, team players. We're going to be on underdog here today as we're firing up. And like I said, it's going to be an amazing conversation about how to build a team correctly and not have it be in a spot where you're a slave to the draft board, nor do you have the fear of what a reach really is and what it's going to be. Because so often when we're engaged about making a team, it's about, oh, you reached. Well, there's a lot of things that are actually benefits in the best ball status of doing a so-called reach, especially if you intentionally do them. One of which is you get to build incredibly unique builds that, have the chance of really being different for everyone else and therefore giving you a much larger chance of winning when we come down to the final rounds. This is obviously a big strategy for Best Ball Mania, because what you don't want to have happen is the exact same card to someone else, because then you don't have an opportunity to differentiate yourself and make any points. But when you're in a spot where you're building 100% unique picks and unique teams, well, then you're in a spot where you are there. And I'm not talking about just your last 25% of your picks or at the end going different or dramatic, but trying to do it from conscientiously from the start. Now, we're already given a great benefit now that we're doing these drafts before the NFL draft. So you're seeing all kinds of different assumptions, some of which will be proven correctly, some of which won't, as far as landing spots and overall production of what we'll have. And that is one of the other things I love about doing drafts this type of the year. We've said many times we're getting incredible value on these rookie running backs, particularly Hampton and Henderson, and it is just absolutely palatable and crazy. So Bob's going to be jumping in here, and we're going to have ourselves an amazing conversation about the value of creating these differentiated teams. And Bob, welcome.
Hey, what's up? So first things first. So shout out Fantasy Dog Pound. I was eating dinner yesterday and just looking for some content to absorb. And, I was watching an episode from about 2 days ago. And this is something that we have been doing on our show for quite some time. It's something that we showed last year as well. But shout out to Fantasy Dog Pound for presenting it with an underdog draft. So one of the things to be clear about when we talk about this concept of reaching for players, we're not talking about reaching in the frame of when you look at your friend in your own PPR redraft league and you go, boy, that was a reach. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about here is in the first couple of rounds, first, 3, 4, 5 rounds, building a team that is coherent, but also at the same point in time, you're reaching for a player who could have similar production given the situation that they're in. Plus, you won't get that player coming back. I want to give you all an example of how this can create differentiated teams, for example. So yesterday, I was in one of those dollar drafts on DraftKings, and I was, just playing around at night while I was watching TV. And I was like, I had the 3 spot. And typically speaking, if you have the 3 spot, you're drafting one of 5 players.
Yeah, one of the running backs.
You're getting the remnants of one of the running backs that are there. You're getting CeeDee Lamb or you're getting Justin Jefferson. Mm-hmm. But I was like, hey, I'm going to use this strategy and I'm going to take Puka. And so by taking Puka in the first round, I then had the option of going best back available in the second round. I chose JT. And in the third round, I have Tyreek. Now, there are going to be teams that maybe reached up on JT in the second round, but they're definitely going to be teams that don't have Puka, JT, and Tyreek Hill. There is an advantage to that And to that concept that you're creating throughout those first couple of rounds, you're creating a team that has the percentage advantage for you. So we're not talking about overreaching, like taking a player 2 rounds earlier, but thinking about, hey, we're sitting here in the first round. Usually in this first round, at the 8th spot, people are thinking about
Well, see, here's where I wanted to ask this question about, because there is no consensus here at 8. 8, there's an entire cluster you could go with to make it happen. And one of the other things you said in there that needs to be stated is build a cohesive team. And that part means that we're just not we're not doing onesies early. We're making intelligent calls regardless, even if it's not in that true ADP spectrum of where this is. So when we look at this 8th spot, there's a consensus. There's like 6 guys who go 8th.
And here's the thing, though, too. It doesn't make it too difficult. Now, here's the thing. So what I'm looking at here to make this team a bit more unique than some is that maybe at this position, given the wide receiver value here and what the wide receiver value is on the comeback, right? Maybe this is a spot where people start taking chances on a guy like Achan. Maybe this is a spot where people start taking chances on a guy like BTJ, depending on the format. Usually,
what about like a Ma, and then what about a Ma?
Amon-Ra is kind of one of those players that this is his typical ADP value. So it's not so much
ADP values, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's not so much a reach in the capacity that you can make a unique.
Well, we would take Genty here. Of all those, I would rather have Genty than A-Chain.
Taking Genty here would absolutely create you something that you're overtaking him, but
I'm not getting him back at
he
17.
might not be there on the comeback. Recently, he has been, but he might not be there on the comeback. So there is some credibility to taking.
Well, let's take Genty.
Nico,
change us up like from our dependency on all of the rookie running backs we've had, or at least the mid-tier rookie running backs we have.
So now what I'd like to do on this comeback position, is we have talked about over and over again on our show about the value of making sure that you get wide receivers early.
Yes.
And making sure you get wide receivers early is very, very, very important. But I kind of want to think about that, given the value here, and given that when we look at the players that are going to be available to us when we come back in the 3rd round, right? So typically speaking, when we come back in the 3rd round at the 8th pick, you're going to have guys like JSN potentially, Mike Evans potentially, DJ Moore should be there somewhere in the 3rd and 4th round. What direction, Joe, if we're talking about maybe pulling up a guy and not necessarily reaching, but pulling him up, what kind of player are you looking for here? If we're
here, I would like to have a debate between McConkey, Tyreek, and then Jigba. That's the kind of group that I want to look at. Now, granted, you could argue Ladd's at ADP, but I still think that's a reach for him a little bit.
I'm also seeing Derrick Henry is still here. And
Henry is still here, but I'd rather go A-Chain than Henry.
I'm okay with something like that too. Although it's not, typically speaking, I have seen some HN Genty teams.
Then we're going to go Ladd, because you have not seen Genty Ladd.
Rarely have I seen Genty Ladd. Now,
you have not seen Genty Ladd, and that will give
for everybody watching right now, what we're doing is just a little exercise to show you, how you can potentially build some uniqueness into your teams by pulling certain players up your board to make some cohesion stick. Now, you're going to see that we're probably going to miss some value on some guys that we would normally take. Normally, if Derrick Henry
realistically, we would have taken Henry or A-Chain.
We would have most likely taken Derrick Henry. And given Ashton Genty, we could have had a team of Puka and Derrick Henry, and that would have been killer. But, I
still think we're going to be able to get Henderson and Hampton.
We're going to build some different uniqueness here. Like, for example, like a Bijan Bucky stack at the beginning, you're probably going to see in the finals. If that team were to make the finals, you're probably going to see a lot of that. Yeah. Saquon JT, you're probably going to see a lot of that. The Burrows, the Burrows and the Jamar Chases. And that's the other thing too, is that Burrow isn't the guy that I'm pulling up, right?
No.
Because the stack is nice, but again, there are going to be a veritable hodgepodge of players there, or teams that are going to have those two players.
So, but my ideal turn here, looking at players that we'd be taking it ahead of the curve. I would love to do Davante Adams here at this pick.
I'm okay with something like that.
He's lower down the receiving chart than where he would be ADP wise. He's about
but the question is,
right now.
Hold on. The question is, if we pull him up, is he a player that we could get at the 4th round spot?
I don't think so, because I'm pretty sure he would go at the turn.
So if that's what we're saying by pulling players up, we have to be confident.
He's wide receiver number 5. So the question is, do you think 5 receivers go between now and the next 11 picks? Absolutely, I do.
Absolutely, I think so.
So I think Davante Adams qualifies for what we're doing here.
Yeah, and exactly. So this is about, again.
It's easier on the second pick because it's a longer break. But if I can get Davante Adams here and then Omari and Hampton on the next come around, again, cohesive build, a guy that I know would go after our pick here at 41, and we would never get him back. So that's how I'm looking at this.
I mean, you might not get him now because he's been flying up people's boards. So,
he never should have been this low. And I think people are finally starting to wake up to that.
Now, as we look at our team, you're looking at the board and saying, okay, right now, do you feel like you can beat some of the other teams? And I think that our team will be fairly competitive. Now, what I'm going to be looking for as this draft continues, Joe,
I do like the Puka CMC Harrison team.
I think that's a strong team. I think that the Tyreek, Justin Jefferson, Jackson Smith is a strong team. I think that the T. Higgins, CeeDee Lamb, Josh Jacobs could be a really elite team as well. So we want to try to get back some value in here as well.
Well, I think Hampton is one of these value pieces. Again, he's a guy who's going to go at least a round higher come August, if not 2, and we can snag him here. It's a major win.
All right, let's see how
the other receiver. If you're looking for receivers that would be in the territory, like, oh my god, I got to get them. Again, this is on DraftKings or on Underdog, which is half PPR. Metcalf's a beast, but I don't want to get him.
Underdog is half PPR. We're on
half PPR. So. We're doing half PPR.
What's full PPR, Joe? DraftKings is full PPR.
We're on Underdog.
Oh, we're on Underdog. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sweet.
So that's why I'm going to go Hampton here. Yeah. There's a value more to the running backs. And I think it's
I'm okay with a guy like Hampton here. And as I look at this board, you're still seeing a lot of something I like. So something I like about this board is that right around us, we have quarterbacks that have already been taken.
Absolutely.
So there's a strong likelihood that we will be able to capitalize on that by taking either Justin Herbert or Davante Adams fairly late without much competition around us. So that will make me confident more so when we get to a turn where quarterbacks are kind of iffy, that we can come back and take a quarterback. What I like about the 2 wide receivers that we've taken, especially in this format, is that when we think about competition for touchdowns on a team, Davante Adams and Puka are going to compete, but there's probably going to be a decent amount of touchdowns to go around between Puka, Kyren, and Davante. And Ladd, although, wasn't featured too much as a touchdown scorer last year, there's a strong likelihood that will increase. That's right. Given the situation that they have in the wide receiver room.
The sophomore bump is real.
Sophomore bump can be real. Guys like JMO, I think, are great in half PPR right here. Can potentially give you elite production with a, depending on how he's being used in a given game. I like JMO a lot.
Oh, JMO's more valuable in half PPR than full PPR. There's no doubt about that.
I'm particularly enjoying Team 4's build right now, where we look at the 4 wide receiver build to start out the gate. Rashid, Jackson Smith, Tyreek, Jefferson, all those guys can potentially be elite touchdown producers going into this season. I think that's an incredible combination there. And you're going to notice that, unlike in DraftKings, you're going to notice we haven't seen Najee get pulled up yet. We haven't seen the Ken Walkers. We haven't seen the Alvin Kamaras. We haven't seen the Chuba Hubbards.
But
those
our
players
pull
are
up for
most
this
likely
pick
going to
will
come
be
soon in
Henderson
the
though.
next 2 rounds.
Henderson will be our pull up for this pick because
I don't think you need
to the second come around,
you
and then we'll get
you
our
don't
receiver.
no, you don't need to take Henderson here.
Oh
You
no,
do
I
not.
know he will not be there on my next pick.
He will.
He
will.
He will not be.
Ken Walker hasn't gone yet. Najee hasn't gone yet. Chuba hasn't gone yet. Kamara hasn't gone yet. He will be there.
He's the 4th running back out on the list.
He will be there.
All right. I'll go with you, Bob. So that being said, we're looking at the receivers on the board here. Addison, Olave, Waddle, Debo, Jennings, Judy. To me, Olave stands out of that group by a mile.
Yeah, I mean, I like Jennings as well. I noticed George Kittle's still on the board. I know that we're not talking about one.
There he goes. There goes Kittle. Olave's the one I would take, though, over Jennings.
I like both, but I'm okay with either, to be honest with you.
All right, so I'm going to start with Olave. If somehow Henderson goes, Jennings is the consolation prize.
I mean, looking at the board, the reason why I'm saying what I'm saying about Henderson is you have 4 running backs already taken on the board.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, people are going to smash the button for touchdown producing running backs. This is why
I think Henderson's going to be one of them.
This is why Ken Walker hasn't gone yet. This is why Najee hasn't gone yet, right? You look at this board, and it pays a little credence to underdog, at least here, where you might not need to smash that button for running back so early. Looking at how the board is being laid out, you have certain players heading for that running back situation. Like, for example, looking at team number 5, you have CDT. Decent collection of players there, right? But we're still sitting here with Ken Walker. We're still sitting here potentially with Trevion. You mentioned Jalen Waddle's on the board somewhere. I could see him going off in these next 4 picks. I don't see team number 9 or 10 going after a running back. Okay. So we could get a little bit of FOMO from the Brees owner here. Maybe. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, we're basically going to have to go Henderson or Judkins.
Let's see what happens. I mean, again,
there you go. I knew he wasn't coming back, Bob.
I mean, quite frankly, though, you look at that team construction and he could have went another wide receiver there. But looking at the board, maybe that wasn't the case. So 4 running backs went off the board there. Najee's still on the board as well. So
to me, Judkins, I'd way rather have than Najee.
All right, I think you're pulling him up as well. So that's fine.
That goes with the theme of the show. Judkins wasn't coming back to me.
Yeah, and to be honest with
you look at all the running backs from this point forward. Najee is a starter. Tracy is a starter. Caleb Johnson will be a starter.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Warren. Now we're in the question marks. Pollard, Stevenson, Etienne, Charbonnet. Like, I need to have 3 receivers before that cliff. I mean, that's just how I look at drafts. I have 3 legit running backs, rather, and I don't need to go in that running back cliff hoping and diving. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can tell me all 3 of my guys are rookies. I know they're going to be predominant ball carriers. Mm-hmm. And I like Bob. I love where our team build is right now.
Well, I just want to throw this out there too. Looking at this, I'm going to say that Judkins is a nice consolation. So looking at the board here, would you rather have the combination of Henderson and Judy, Henderson and Ridley, Henderson and Debo, or one of those wide receivers that we took? We took Olave plus Judkins. I think that you could potentially have more production out of those 2 than the 2 that could have been on.
Yeah, and that's mostly just saying how much you believe in Olave.
And I will say this too,
which is fair.
I will say this too, that when we talk about like target concentration, one of the things that a lot of people are doing now is they're starting to push Calvin Ridley up the board. And I just want to say this about Ridley is that there is a world where Ridley could finish as a top 12 wide receiver. That world would mean that the Tennessee Titans bring in Cam Ward and that they score more than their output than they did in previous seasons. If that's the case, Ridley could end up as a top 12 option. Right now, Ridley's being pulled up to about the 6th round, being buoyed by the fact that they absolutely have no one. There is no one on their depth chart better than Ridley. and they're all monumentally worse than Ridley. So my question is,
well, that's the same thing with the Jigba, quite frankly.
Well, I would disagree in the fact that, Cooper Kupp is there as well, but Cooper Kupp is fading, as I said.
He's the ghost of Cooper Kupp. So, Bob, I look at this pick.
Treylon Burks.
I don't know if it's a true pull-up. This might be actual ADP. I kind of like the idea, and I'm saying this as a guy who hates rookie receivers, of going Golden.
I would say
Golden,
here,
to me, after Travis Hunter, is the best receiver in this draft.
I would say, if Travis Hunter's off the board.
Oh, Hunter's on the board. I think we can get both.
Yeah, I would want Travis Hunter here.
So I go Golden because Golden's ADP. He's the second receiver on the board right now.
Oh, Golden's ADP right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's
Travis Hunter is 7 picks behind Golden.
That's a little flip-flopped in DraftKings.
It is. So Golden's ADP here. And so your ADP for receivers are Golden, Ibekua, Ayuk, Kupp, and Hunter. So there's no guarantee we're getting Hunter.
Yeah, but go Golden here. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'd like to go Golden here, and then, quite frankly, probably Warren on the next one, because I know Warren won't come back to me.
I mean, but if we could get Travis Hunter, I'd rather have him.
See, the problem with that is there's no tight. The point of this show is to go get the people you want, even if they're ahead.
Well, no.
Tight end I'm going to want.
No, the point was up until round 5.
Yeah, no, and we definitely built a unique team. You are not going to see this team anywhere else.
It's a unique and competitive team. Okay?
And that's the point. And I think Warren. No, great. I think Travis Hunter could be an absolute home run too.
And that's why I would rather take him as a home.
Well, there goes Hunter. That ends that conversation.
Yeah.
But to me, Warren again fits what we're going for. I think he hits. I think he's even if he's a Jet, and that is the worst case scenario for his landing spot is the Jets.
That's that down under time right now, family.
I still think he produces. I really do.
But I will say it is 4:07 right now, and I'm absolutely exhausted. And when I go home, I get to see my son and my wife, and I'm still exhausted. That's the lay of the land, right? That's the lay of the land when it comes to kids and more kids, because I do teach. So, all right. So I see Kuka. I'm okay. So how about
this guy taking Baker and Allen?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. What I like about Underdog, because there's no bonuses here, is that we see Josh Allen falling to the 3rd round. He's not being overdrafted.
And also, by the way, Bob, we have 3 very easy stackable quarterbacks.
Exactly.
None of our guys get run on.
All right, so this is Warren.
I didn't realize that when we were drafting the receivers consciously, but we can get Herbie, Stafford, all super late, and Carr.
Yeah, comparatively.
I think that also helps the team. Because any given week, these guys can pull a Burrow and just go nuts, 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Burrow's going in the 5th round.
Family, what is this question in reference to? Are you doing that trade that we were talking about a couple of days ago? So looking at this board right now as we see it, we have a very balanced team. Extremely balanced team. While people might not like Olave because of the concussion issues, there is also no competition outside of Kamara and potentially Juwan Johnson in New Orleans as well. So you're taking wide receivers that have really, Lad, etc. What would I rather have? So what I would rather,
Bob. A lot of people just listen to us.
What I would rather have here, so family, you're asking if we have a Monty plus the 110 in Dynasty, or would you want the 102? And I would quite frankly rather have the 102. The 102 secures you. The 102 secures you Travis Hunter. It secures you Ashton Genty. It would secure you if you like Tet. You could go with Tet. In Dynasty,
it's going to secure you. It's going to Hampton. Hampton
in Dynasty. I am not. I am not afraid to trade a guy like Monty, whose value he can rush for over 100 yards, but he's not asked to do that so much anymore. So I would totally trade that touchdown.
And Hampton's going to replace him anyway. Who's your probable 1-2?
Because what you're looking at here is potentially what this would be like Monty plus Igbuka, or Monty plus Warren for Genty, or Monty plus Warren for Hunter, or Monty plus Warren for Omarion Hampton. And I'd rather have the 102. I'd rather have the 102 by far and away.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, Genty is going 1 of 1. It was just an example there. Genty's a
So,
dog.
Bob, my ideal turn for here is Shaheed and then Herbie.
The other trade fell through for Barkley. I mean, that's going to happen. I feel like right now, a lot of people are a little gun shy on some trades. I think that dynasty, like when we're trading dynasty picks, I think it's easier for people to kind of trade the unknown rather than the known commodities at this point in time.
But, Bob, that's the plan for this turn, Shaheed and then Herbie.
I'm okay with something like that.
Because then we can really stack New Orleans and have some good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be okay with it. I'd be okay with Shaheed here. Like I said, I was going to say I like Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is a good option in this ninth round here, especially in a half PPR league. He provides a little bit of value here. I think that, as we get later on, a potential Kyle Pitts or Freiermuth, when we're looking at as we're looking at tight end, what I'm looking for is potential touchdown upside in a tight end here. I think that
you're finding that Freiermuth, but
I think that the Falcons are going to be able to move the ball fairly easily with Bijan and fairly easily with Drake London. So I think later that I'd like to prioritize a guy like
So you brought up Pitts here. I want to use him to talk about Lovejoy, who's going to be coming up.
Before you get to Loveland. Yeah, if I have to move. So when we talk about moving players like Bucky, when we talk about moving players like Keon Coleman for a guy like Barkley, plus picks and stuff, I do think that there is so much more upside. And this is given what Barkley has produced for us so far. And the narrative out there of, usually running backs don't give us running back one value year in and year out, or like running back overall number one value year in and year out. I really do feel very strongly about the great things that we've been hearing about Bucky. And I do feel very strongly still about Saquon Barkley. But I do think there is that tremendous upside that you could get in Bucky and with Keon Coleman that most people would be like, hey, yeah, I don't mind trading Bucky for Keon for Barkley. I don't mind it. But I just wouldn't move a sophomore running back like that who had a productive season, who the team likes.
Yeah, in Dynasty, Bucky should be gold. He's going to be considered to be moved.
So here you go with the two teams that didn't have a quarterback taking their first quarterback at the turn there with Justin Fields and Brock Purdy, and unstacked Justin Fields, which is a little bit of a weird option.
Okay, Justin Fields is one of the ones that doesn't need to be stacked per se.
Yeah, but I also wouldn't prioritize.
Overall, when we look at this draft, there's not a whole lot of stacking that's happening, which will help us get out of the room, which is one of the big things you need to do in the first place.
That's what we're looking for here.
Can't win it all if you don't get out of the room.
And we'll review the board and compare our teams as we always do. But one of the things that I find to be unique.
He's got Jennings Purdy. That is a stack.
One of the things that I find to be unique about the underdog instead of DraftKings here is the way and the prioritization of tight ends. So Jonnu going down here in the 9th, Kelsey going in the 8th as well. Mark Andrews slipping all the way down into the 10th. I have been seeing Mark Andrews fall-ish a little bit more recently in drafts. And I think that given where he's going and given the uncertainty of the running backs in this room at this time, that if you ask me, would I rather have Travis Etienne, Brian Robinson Jr., or Jordan Mason or Mark Andrews? I'd rather pick up Mark Andrews here. So there is another reason why you might not prioritize Kittle, why you might not prioritize McBride, you might not prioritize Sam Laporta, because a guy like Mark Andrews, who still has touchdown upside, especially in underdog, why he's going so low. I mean, I would, if we weren't taking a quarterback there, I would have loved to double up and then not even have to worry about tight end for the rest of the draft, to be quite honest.
Oh, no, I get that. And there is value to that because
then you got the run. And then you got the run.
Yeah.
Right? You have that mini run.
But one thing I want to bring about tight ends, because you brought up Pitts earlier, and Loveland is the number 2 rookie that people keep talking about. is Kyle Pitts is a very effective guy when being covered by a safety or a linebacker. So in a traditional tight end format, he is beautiful. But the problem is he never lines up in line. So he always gets a corner on him. And it's why he's never really been successful in the NFL. Warren loves blocking people and will be covered by a safety. Loveland, on the other hand, is almost exactly like Pitts. That if he gets a safety, dominant. If he gets a corner, not so much so.
That's why I'd rather have Pitts a couple rounds later.
Well, I don't think I want either of them. And the more I'm dying, I definitely don't want the rookie version of Pitts again.
So now that who are we prioritizing here, Joe? Who are you prioritizing here?
I'm prioritizing QJ to give me a second team stack.
Okay, I'm okay with that. And then Stafford on the comeback?
That's exactly right.
All right. Family, there was a big trade that went down in the league. It wasn't you. The 102 plus Fields for Jordan Love and 2/3. That's a huge trade. Can't say I'm like
wait. Without a doubt, I want to be on
the guy that
102 and Fields.
For the guy that moved Jordan Love for Fields in the 102. Congrats to him.
Home run, man.
I having the 102 and giving up your 2/3. Now, there are going to be dynasty creators out there that will say, there's still a bunch of value, especially in this class, for your third round picks with like the running backs and the wide receivers that are coming out. And I get that, there can be, but there's a whole hell of a lot more value in a guy like Travis Hunter or Tet or Hampton right now.
You don't win with volume, guys. Everyone knows you win with quality.
I do think when it all comes said and done, that when you think of a points per game basis, Love and Field are pretty similar to one another. So I think
Field has a chance of being top 5 guy.
I think that's a win all day. Yeah, and it's super flex, and even considering super flex, I mean, I would rather have Fields in a super flex than Jordan Love. And this is coming from a guy who loves.
I disagree with that. Christian, I would rather have Fields. Sorry, I said that.
Yeah, wrong. This is coming from a guy that loves Jordan Love. Jordan Love has the capability of putting up 32-point games, but if I'm getting that same capability on the ground from Fields, they just went out and got him. I mean, you're the value of Fields prior to that trade prior to him getting picked up by the Jets was garbage, right? Straight garbage. Then you look at him now and look at the value that he provides you. He would be able to get you the 102. Trading him with that, I don't feel like I would want Love in 2/3 over Fields. I think that, even everything that I said about Fields not necessarily wanting him, I feel like there's something to say there. And another thing here, when we look at the 11th round that just shook down, the 11th and 10th and 11th round, a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of tight ends. A lot of quarterbacks, a lot of tight ends.
Well, again, part of this is because the receiver quality is pushed up much higher, and there's too much uncertainty with the running backs.
But this is what I talked about, though, is that if you're say you're prioritizing a stack of Patrick Mahomes like we've done before, I'm okay doing that. But if you're prioritizing that stack of Patrick Mahomes and then you're down here in the quarterback market, you're most likely going to take another quarterback anyway because they're all popping off the board. And so you're losing out on tremendous value that you could have been getting. Like, thinking about it, like the difference between having, let's say, Golden, Hunter, Pickens, Myers, Shakir, plus, potentially Jared Goff 2 rounds later. I mean, it really depends upon your team construction. And that's why it is at times scary to build a high class stack like a Terry McLaurin, Jane Daniels. To be honest, that's one of the most unique things that you can actually build right now is Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels, because usually speaking, you're not going to be able to capitalize on getting those 2 guys in the same draft. And to be honest with you, I
don't know if it's worth it though.
I get it. I'm there with you. And the other part of the coin here too is that a lot of Josh Allen owners, if we're talking about builds that are kind of unique, a lot of Josh Allen owners are comfortable rolling a naked Josh Allen.
Yes.
So
yeah.
So being unique in that respect is maybe taking two pieces attached to Josh Allen that are the wide receivers, because a lot of people, content creators included, if they're building Josh Allen, he's either naked or with James Cook. And if you want to be a little bit unique in that scenario, maybe it's better to tie Josh Allen to a couple of wide receivers or Dalton Kincaid. There are ways to capture that uniqueness in these early drafts that is really interesting to me. It's funny, on KGC, they value the number 2 pick way more than Hampton, Ward, or Tet. The only thing I can think of is mix of it is highly liquid value before the draft and or the chance Genty might fall. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of exactly the case where there is a world where by August, by the time, people, or by the time your draft kind of rolls around for the dynasty picks, who are you getting here, Joe?
Sampson.
Okay. That's smart. He would be our 4th guy, right? Or 3rd guy.
He'd be our 4th
guy, because we have a lot of rooks. A lot of rooks in the running
back. We
have
all rookie running backs.
Very bold.
If not, it's got to be Garendo, but if not, it's going to be Neal, but I'd rather go Sampson.
Okay.
He got auto-picked, and it wasn't Sampson, and that's what I'm talking about.
All right. So as we look at this, the number 2 pick, it's kind of like the Schrodinger's cat, or the experiment that people say. There was a Simpsons episode where Homer's in the office, and he said, and he's ready to he won a boat, and the guy's and it's kind of let's make a deal, where you go in and you say, oh, I'm gonna get a boat, and the guy's like, do you want to take the envelope? And the guy and Homer was like, oh, it could even be a boat. And it ends up not being a boat. And I feel like right now, that's kind of what we're looking at in these dynasty picks, is if you're sitting at number 2, the value of that number 2 pick is really high, because it could be
Hampton is very high.
But it could be Genty.
If
Genty falls, if somebody likes Omarion or Tet or Travis Hunter, if Genty
falls, you hit a home run if Genty falls, but the value of Omarion Hampton is
that's exactly why it's worth more. And to be honest with you, family, when it comes to the rookie running backs, we do like these rookie running backs, but here's the thing. I much rather, and I've said this before, in the best ball, in my regular redraft league, I'm probably not hammering the rookie running backs as hard. I'm going to sprinkle them in a bunch. But in this best
probably not at this stage in the draft. Right here, I'm probably going with Algier, because I'm not getting him back. And it's also, as we were talking about, he's
on
not
Monday.
Atlanta's not drafting a running back. It's one of the very few teams that.
Yeah, and we don't have Bijan. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you steal it.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
So and now we're probably done at running back, by the way.
Looking at the board, if I'm in a redraft, I'm only sprinkling in a couple of these backs, because more than likely Dylan Sampson is not going to pay off for the first 4 weeks, potentially. Devin Neal probably not going to pay off for the first 5-6 weeks, potentially. But what I'm looking for is that if I've built my team well enough that my wide receivers, my quarterback, et cetera, can carry me through, and I need to get just moderate production from my running backs, then when it comes time for the end of the year, that these guys would have shown out. And, that's kind of the experiment. Remember we talked about on Monday, where say you wanted to roll Jerome Ford. Cleveland's most likely going to get a running back in this draft. That's going to happen. That's going to happen. Will Ford still be relevant? Sure. There will be weeks probably towards the beginning of the season, or if some healthy thing happens. But if health isn't an option, we talked about not thinking about that. And if we said, okay, Jerome Ford is probably going to get a couple good weeks in there, he'll carry you a little bit in that beginning to mid part of the season. But then later on, you want the guys that are going to most likely see the field. And one of those guys is probably not Jerome Ford. So building Jerome Ford is fine. But if I'm building Jerome, I also want to build some rooks, or I want to build some sophomores. What I'm not doing is what this person did at number 5. I'm not drafting 2 running backs that could potentially and have been, mentioned in rumors and things to lose their job in Brian Robinson Jr. and Jerome Ford. What I want is a balance of, okay, yeah, maybe they'll lose their job, but maybe not right away. maybe, but I want to get those rookies that will be there because they went out and bought the rookie. They want the rookie, so they're going to play the rookie. I think that there's a lot to say about that as we get into the trenches, as we get closer to the draft and everybody gets more information about the draft. Like, looking at a guy like Cam Skattebo, we talked a little bit about Cam Skattebo and why we think that maybe he could be a bust in the NFL. But if I'm being honest with you and I'm comparing him to the those four running backs that are there, I would take more chances on Cam Skattebo than I would Travis Etienne. I would take more chances on Cam Skattebo than I would Brian Robinson Jr., and I'd take more chances on Cam Skattebo than I would Jordan Mason. Tyreek Hill with another domestic dispute. I mean, that's going to shake the board up a little bit. I talked a little bit earlier today on how I built a team with Tyreek and Puka and stuff.
Oh, that guy took Hunter. And that guy did exactly what we're saying. He wasn't going to come back to him. Hunter Henry was the guy I was sitting on.
It's fine. I mean, we're sitting there. A lot of tight ends went off the board.
Yeah, I might go get second here just to make sure I get a second decent one.
He's okay.
Basically here's your tight ends: Otten, Gesicki, Ertz, Schultz.
I'd take a chance on Otten.
All right, Otten it is.
I'd take a chance on Otten. I mean, again, we saw McMillan come out really well last year. We saw if Godwin's hurt, that there is, if the wide receivers get hurt, it tends to go to Otten a little bit more. We're not expecting Otten to play often for us. So that's something there. I want to get to that Tyreek Hill. I'm gonna look up some stuff there. So I'm confident, family. I offer Monty for the 102. Guy will come back with Gibbs 102. Would you offer Monty in the 110 for Bijan instead? If somebody were to offer me that, I'd be like, if I were dealing away Bijan, I would probably want to secure myself one of the top other running backs. So I'd probably want to at least try to get like the fourth pick. I would kind of maybe.
This is a fairly sharp draft, Bob. There's a lot of people that I keep putting maybe and they're getting taken before I come up. This is a very.
I would maybe upgrade that Monty. If I could, to maybe Monty and maybe something else plus the 110 for Bijan, because Bijan's still young. Like I said, I think that he could end up as the RB1 overall this year. I really like.
So Bob, to your point, number 12 here took Coleman,
I like that
Coleman, Palmer, and Allen. So kind of give it, as you were saying, the non-naked Allen.
The non-naked Allen. I mean, people know the problem with Josh Allen and the way that those wide receivers work. If you're confident in your wide receiver, which he might be, we'll take a look at it at the end of the draft. Going with some pieces there, I think is smart because a lot of people are going to run the naked. And I don't want that. So Tyler Conklin is another piece that, when we look at tight ends and we look at veteran tight ends still have value. We could roll Jawan Johnson here because we do have some of that New Orleans stack built in.
We gotta get the quarterback of it.
Getting Derek Carr here and hopefully. But again, I've heard Derek Carr also.
We have two Saints receivers. We have two. We will have two Rams, and we have two Chargers receivers.
Derek Carr might also lose his job. So, that's something to think about too. But I want to.
If Shador slips to 11, that part is possible, I suppose. But I still don't think they'd start Shador over Carr.
You know what I heard. There's Joe, and this is. We'll get to the questions in the chat in a moment. But this is something that I think is very unique, and I think you should hear. I was doing my daily TikTok doom scroll, and I came across somebody who was moaning and complaining about a professional mock drafter's mock draft. And the Cleveland Browns at pick 33, this mock drafter projecting Tyler Shook to the Cleveland Browns. So your boy, Tyler Shook, is getting some shout outs to be a second round quarterback. And I think that's,
Dude, if he goes ahead of Dart, he'll go in the first round.
And at the same point in time, I've heard a lot of rumors as well about Cousins to Cleveland. So they might go Shook and Cousins and see how it shakes down, and see what's going down there. But I do want to get to this. Guys so when I hear news like this about Tyreek, I am cautiously buying the dip with Tyreek, cautiously. But I'm also pushing Waddle up. I'm buying the dip on Tyreek. I'm pushing Waddle up, and I'm pushing Nick Westbrook-Akine up a little bit, okay? Because Tua does like to throw the ball a lot. Miami does throw the ball a lot. So if this news is what it is, I'm still buying the dip at appropriate value for Tyreek Hill, and I'm buying more stock in Malik Washington. I'm buying more stock in Nick Westbrook-Akine, and I'm buying definitely more in Achane, and definitely more in Jalen Waddle. We didn't get Juwan. That's a bummer.
I'm okay with that.
That's a bummer.
I'm probably going to Mario Douglas here.
I'm okay with something like that. Get a little fresh legs in there. Would I trade Derrick Henry in the 110 for Bijan Robinson? So this is like me saying, would I trade?
Yes, I would do
Derrick
that
Henry
in a dynasty
and
league.
Tyler Warren for Bijan? I absolutely would.
Yeah.
Family, you know us. We love Derrick Henry, but we love Bijan more.
That's right.
Now, Derrick Henry could easily eclipse 18 total touchdowns again this year. That's something to be considered.
Well, easily. It's like basically an impossible feat he just did.
He is older, but he's going to be used. So if you're comfortable with that, this to me would be like saying Henry and Warren for Bijan Robinson. I think that's more than fair. Or Henry and Igbuka, or
so
Henry
Conklin
and
to
Golden,
the Chargers
like that,
would fit in our stacks.
I don't want to take too many Chargers. I'm okay with just a 2-1.
We already have 2 of them. Then we're not taking.
I'm okay with a 2-1 with Herbie. I'm okay with a 2-1 with Herbie.
We'll just end with Noah Gray as our last tight end, as we often do. A guy that we haven't taken in a while, but Bob, I like, and I like this for a lot of reasons, is Michael Wilson. And the reason is I don't think Arizona will take a receiver of any significance. And I think he's just going to basically redshirt himself as a second, as another year as the number 2 out there.
Where is Nick Westbrook-Akine at, Joe? In their ADP? If we brought him up, would that be too much?
Right. Yeah, he's projected as an undraftable right now.
Okay, so next
Wilson
round
would be the pick. I'll put Akine on the board.
But I agree with you, Ant. When we look at the Dolphins team,
that's 3 picks left, right?
There is a very credible, a credible story you can make up and a narrative you can make up where a guy like Nick Westbrook-Akine, maybe we should have taken Chig there, Joe.
No, I'm cool with Noah Gray as the last one. Otten is our number 2.
Yeah,
I think Mike Wilson.
The Wild West RM. When you get down to the 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th rounds, it is the Wild West. But it's always interesting to see who's getting drafted on teams and what. If I'm on DraftKings, I'm absolutely sprinkling a little bit of Ty Johnson in from Buffalo. They did use him towards the back half of the year. With all the information,
easily out-drafted in the NFL year. I mean, that could be.
I get it, but I don't think they're going to draft another running back. That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm saying a 4th-round running back can outkick him.
I get that, but what I'm saying is he's already established on Buffalo, and if there's any problem with Cook, they're going to go Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, and they have used them all. They've used them all. So if I have to waste a 20th pick on basically what's going to be a 0 most weeks anyway.
No, that's fair.
I'm okay.
On that note, the guy that I want to throw in here is another handicap. I want to throw in Jordan Whittington. Gives us another Stafford second guy, and we saw when Kupp was out, the dude performed.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives us simultaneously if
what's our build look like? Do we have? Are we at 3, 5, 8, 2
right now? Yeah,
3, 5, 8, 2 right now. Okay,
so we'll end 3, 5, 9, 9, 3 as we've been doing for the last couple of weeks. And quite frankly, I used to not be comfortable with just 5.
So I
but
would
I'm more
rather have
comfortable now than ever.
I would rather have Akine than Whittington here, knowing
Okay.
that this is the last 2 rounds. I'd rather have Akine than Whittington, to be honest with you. Higbee actually went already. We love Higbee.
Mhm.
Higbee missed time, and I am, I am drafting more Higbee than I probably should be. That Demario Douglas pick could have been Tyler Higbee. Probably should have been Tyler
No,
Higbee.
couldn't. Higbee went 3 picks before Demario
Okay,
Douglas.
but that would have been the spot we would have looked at for Tyler
Yeah,
Higbee
it would have been.
if he would have still been
We
there.
drafted Higbee a lot last year.
I like the Sean Tucker pick in the off chance, maybe if I'm not drafting Bucky and I wanted to get a little bit of chutzpah there. You see Trey Tucker, Tutu Atwell go.
I'm not
I mean,
see Trey Tucker and because some of these guys you've been talking about, Justice Hill, Trey Tucker, the guy from Buffalo, either of the guys from Buffalo. I'm not gonna even touch them until after the NFL draft.
I'm going to take chances on him, and here's why.
I
Right?
probably went Noah Gray there.
No, I don't know. You might have, should have. Brock Bowers is somewhere on this board for somebody too, so I doubt that they're gonna go somewhere there. There goes Theo Johnson, so Noah Gray might go. But when you look at a guy like Ty Johnson,
I messed that up, Bob.
that's all right. I don't think Westbrook Akine was going to be there for us. I think somebody would have taken him.
So, are you comfortable with 2 tight ends?
Sure. I mean, again, I'm not prioritizing tight end as highly as many people are. I don't see any valuable ones left on the board, so I don't see the need to
There's
take one.
Taysom Hill, there's Michael Myers.
I mean, you know how I feel about AJ Barner would be a nice option. I like AJ Barner a little bit more.
See, I think I'd rather have Whittington than all. The problem is Whittington will never get on the roster. A tight end would get on the roster.
Yeah, a tight end like a back end tight end, like we've always been saying, could get that roster there.
So to
Grant
me, it would be
wait,
Michael Mayer
no. Listen,
or Knox.
Joe, Grant Calcaterra for Ant here because Goddard might get traded, and Grant Calcaterra is the tight end. Would be that tight end there. Ant, good call, man. Good call. We like Sinnott, but with the signing of Ertz, we're buying less Sinnott right now. We're buying much less Sinnott. And good call out on that Grant Calcaterra.
Very good. Thank you for saving our ass there. 20-round pick.
He did
buyout, baby. Love it.
Did.
Love it.
So Grant Calcaterra did play when Goddard went down. Now, granted, he's not the best player in the world. Has a great name. I'd rather take the great name. 20 points for the great name. But I think that's good conversation. And when we look at Sinnott, Sinnott didn't do much last year. They brought back Ertz. We were hoping for a big upturn in Sinnott work. We were taking a lot of early Sinnott. And depending on what we hear, Torrey Horton, that's a guy nobody's taking. So good on that guy. When we look at Sinnott and we say, okay, is there a chance? Yeah. There's absolutely a chance. If Ertz were to get hurt, he could see the field a little bit more. Them bringing in Debo, them bringing in potentially another running back. A lot of dings to Sinnott there, especially because he didn't show up yet. I do like that Parker Washington down there in the 20th round as well. Showed out a little bit. They did get Diami Brown, but I think that's an interesting selection there. I wouldn't have went Vele in a half PPR, especially at that second pick there. And family, when we look at something like this, Jackson Dart is most likely going to be pulled up by people in Dynasty in round 1. Particularly people that will see that they could probably get a Dylan Sampson, Devin Neal in round 2 of their Dynasty drafts. And I think that they'll be comfortable knowing that, I probably can't get Jackson Dart in the 2nd round or in the 3rd round. You're probably going to see Tyler Shook get pulled up a little bit more than he probably should be as well.
No one was talking about him, dude. I had him as a pre-combine snag.
So I think that there's a lot. We're going to go through the board here and see see everything here.
So let's give you the roster right now. At quarterback, we got Herbie, Stafford, and Carr, the weakest part of the team. Your running backs, get ready.
Joe, hold on. Joe, hold on before you do that. Family, I want to address this comment. Not on air, but in private, I have done this. I have done the scary of the scary. The problem with this build is you're not getting any correlation. So
Yeah.
I won't do it in the last 4 rounds, but I have waited until rounds 15, 16, because I built Olave. I took Derek Carr, came around again. I also had a Malik Neighbors. So I built Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. And then I also took a Downs and I had Anthony Richardson. So I think that's like, if I'm doing a scary build like this, that's kind of in the quarterback range where I'm landing on. I will most likely end with Wilson. And to be honest with you, if Rodgers becomes the Steelers quarterback, I see no problem in you doing something like a DK
Well, if
Metcalf.
Rodgers becomes the Steelers quarterback, he'll go into that.
I'm saying like right now, speculative Steelers quarterback. If I built George Pickens or Freiermuth or anything like that, I would be okay going something like Derek Carr, 16th round, especially if I built Jackson Smith, a Sam Darnold in the 17th, and then an Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson, depending on what I built in the 18th.
The point is, it's doable, but you have to really plan for it. And like,
you have to really plan
here was, and you guys, for you guys who were there live at the time, you guys saw the realization I made when we were done with our first 3 receivers that these are all cheap quarterbacks we stacked with, and we did successfully stack them all. So
we're going to go back up and look at it.
Herbie, Stafford,
Joe, go ahead back. Go. Can you go to look at just the team without missing the draft board and go back to the draft board?
All right. So
I usually use underdog
right here on the right-hand side. It is Herbie, Stafford, Carr, Genty,
Hampton, a lot of rookies.
Judkins, Sampson. All rookie running backs, though. No other starter.
That's the risk. So that's the risk that you run, though, is that if you're doing something like this, potentially.
How would the first or second rounders? There's no risk in that. That's what I'm trying to get across to people. Omari and Hampton's going in the first round. There's no risk. The Ohio State running backs are going the second round. There's no risk with them. Mm-hmm. It's crazy how undervalued they are. The only thing that like I'm worried about this team is Olave's the number 1. Mm-hmm. But again, with the sophomore bump, it could be awesome. I love Olave coming off his injury. Golden's the best receiver not named Hunter in this draft.
Yeah.
Shaheed and Johnson, 2 double stacks. And then Douglas and Wilson, they just score random touchdowns sometimes.
I'll take a look at it in a minute, family.
Dirty wins. And then, of
course,
I
mean, like the team. The team's good. I mean, I like the team for sure. Joe, family had a question before we talk a little bit more about the other teams and do some comparisons here. Who's the best quarterback left for the 20th round? It's still probably JMO.
Shook.
No. Like currently in the league and then rookie.
Oh, so on the board right now, is that the question?
Yeah, read the top 5.
ADP wise, it's Daniel Jones.
Okay.
So in the way that the way it's ranked by underdog
Milrow
right
would
now,
be on there too.
It's Jones, Milrow, Winston, Milton, Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett's an actual starter, so he should be the first.
Right now,
yeah, he's going to be.
Shook could beat him for the job, though.
Shook will beat him for the job.
Absolutely, beat him for the job if they go there. So Milrow would beat him for the job.
So let's just break this up. I think Milrow's the better NFL prospect long term. But when we're talking about fantasy production in year 1, Shook will have much more than him. Milrow's going to have to take a year to do it.
To your point, family, about a draft like this, again, depending on how you want to construct your portfolio, depending on how you want to have exposures to different players, I don't think it's bad making a team. Let's say, for example, you draft Josh Allen, right? Let's say you draft Josh Allen on underdog. You take him in the 3rd round. I see veritably no reason to go after another quarterback again until the final 3-2 rounds. I've seen if I'm going Jane Daniels, Joe, depending on how I've constructed, let's say a different quarterback. That's not a good example. Let's say I take
any quarterback in the first 7 rounds, Bob. I think anyone in the first 7 rounds, I agree with you. Just sit on them.
Let's say I take Jalen Hurts family, I am absolutely doing something like this because I don't, maybe taking 2 of them, 3 of them at the back end, because you don't want to lose that. You already took a quarterback so high. You have to trust that that quarterback is going to perform at the elite level that you believe in, because if he doesn't, you're screwed anyway.
That's
So
right.
there is
Why
no
hurt your team
reason.
twice?
There is no reason for you to then tack a quarterback in the 10th round just because you want to play it safe. If you're taking Lamar, and this is what we might do. We might do this next Monday. We'll take Lamar, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, or Hurts, one of the two, and we won't take another quarterback until round 16 through 20. We'll do that.
I'm cool with that.
I'm absolutely free to do that because I do believe that guys like Will
Kind of
Howard,
like a one quarterback
guys like Shook, guys like Will Howard, guys like Milrow, you can absolutely have value because nobody's taking them. If Josh Allen were to have a shitty game like he had last year that was like 10 points, 9 points, something like that,
you're losing that week.
And Shook ends up at 16 points. 16 points is a good, decent week for Gordon. Not going to win.
I don't think it's realistic unless you're getting Rodgers to think that they're going to consistently be there.
Yeah, they're not going to. I mean, like exactly, but you're not looking for that, right? You're looking for when Josh Allen is having a bad game, but you're hoping Josh Allen never has a bad game. You're hoping Lamar never has a bad game.
Like
because
this guy took. Same's true with tight ends, by the way. This guy who took Brock Bowers in the first round. If Brock Bowers ever has an off week, he loses. I mean, that's the leverage you put. And do I want to be ever all in on a Raider? No.
But here's the thing about Brock Bowers. We talk about Brock Bowers a lot, but one of the things about Brock Bowers is that if you're going Brock, I'm absolutely taking a second tight end because I don't want to miss out on a potential bye week. Potentially, this is going to clear itself up in Best Ball Mania once we know the schedule. Yeah. But in these early best ball drafts, the cleanup for Brock Bowers is, I'm waiting to take it. If I'm taking him first round, I'm taking Noah Gray. And I think this guy did take Noah Gray or was very close to taking Noah Gray at the very back end of this draft. So that's what you need to do. That's the smart thing to do. You clear yourself up. You're not worrying about it. So, it's there. And that's what we'll do. What we'll do on Monday, we're going to talk more about this draft specifically, but what we'll do is we'll draft either Lamar or Josh Allen, depends on where we're sitting at.
We'll draft a top 5 round quarterback, one of the top 5.
Not do another one till the 16th round, no matter the stacks that we build. But we'll be conscious of that and build players that could potentially,
which means we'll probably take a George Pickens. We'll probably try to get but you're not going to play. We should emphasize neighbors. We should emphasize one of the Steelers receivers, if not both. And then let the rookie running backs kind of fall in line.
I think, Joe, we could absolutely, if we're sitting anywhere from 6.
And then I want either Allen or Hurts or Lamar. I want one of those 3 as the quarterback.
If we're sitting 6 through 12, I could potentially see the team shaking down something like this. Are you ready? Malik? Anywhere from 6 through 12. Malik? Then running back. Your choice.
Yep.
Whoever's there, right? 3rd round. Quarterback potentially, or we do the Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts build,
or 3rd round is just Josh Allen, and
the 3rd round is Josh Allen. We don't worry about it, right? There is it. We'd have to read the board what it comes down, but to your point here, family, the solid there is a conversation, and this is how
they took Joe Burrow in the 2nd round in this draft.
Overdraft. He built Chase Brown as well. So, there's that. But before we talk about this, before we talk about the teams,
it must be in Cincinnati.
Before we talk about the teams, what I want to say about this build specifically, family, is I like the concept of this build, but I like it for a couple of reasons, and I like it, but it's scary. Ready? Here's the correct build for me. If I'm building stud tight end, stud quarterback, and then the late stuff. The stud tight end I'm building is George Kittle. Here's why. George Kittle, you are not losing any value. Look at the round, especially on underdog, where George Kittle is being drafted. On DraftKings, he's being drafted in the 4th round. George Kittle is being drafted in the 5th round on underdog. And look at what's around him. He can absolutely surpass the weekly production of every single player in that round consistently.
Well, I'm talking about his roster. You can. So I
like
Kittle more. The other one I contend with is Hawkinson. I mean, obviously we take Warren, but those to me are the two.
Look, I wouldn't put Hawk in the elite. I'd put Laporta there. I would say Kittle or Laporta would be the guys.
I think Hawk and Warren are both going to blow it up this year, dude. I think Hawk will be back. However, it takes a year and a half to come back from injury.
I'm not disagreeing with you in that.
Love tight ends,
but I do think
never double teamed.
I do think though, if I'm building Kittle and Laporta, and I build Jalen Hurts, especially an underdog, you could easily, depending on where you're sitting at in the back half of this or in the top half of this draft pool, you could absolutely pull Jalen Hurts and Sam Laporta and lose no value from your team.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like you could,
but we're not doing both onesies in the same draft. We'll do quarterback.
No, I'm just speaking more to this idea from family. Is that being confident in the stud tight end and quarterback is there. And another example, if you wanted to do Brock, you absolutely can do Brock. But the problem is on DraftKings, you don't want to do Brock and Josh Allen because those two guys have to be drafted first, second round. In underdog, if you want to do Brock and Josh Allen, what happens is that you're going to be hammering yourself with either a bunch of potential upside wide receivers in the mid rounds, or you're handcuffing yourself somewhere else on your team, either in the running back or wide receiver pool. And quite frankly, I think it's kind of dangerous. It's not even a good risk to take, in my opinion, to tie yourself to both Brock Bowers and Josh Allen at this point in time. I don't think it's a good enough risk right now. Josh in the 3rd, Joe Burrow, Hurts in the 4th of the start. And then
we'll let the draft tell us who we're supposed to take where. We'll let it come to us.
Exactly. But when we look at the construction, the construction of these teams to kind of begin with, I am liking that wide receiver court number 4 built a lot. James Conner could show out.
See, Bob, you always love when someone takes 5 in the first 5 rounds. It's a wasted pick.
I like it, but I'm saying I like it. But what I like more is I'm turning my attention over there to team number 3. Bijan and Bucky, that's elite. There is correlation there. The wide receivers also could show out. The Jerry Jeudy, George Pickens, division correlation is also nice because when those games happen, depending on when they happen, that could be a nice combination there. I've done that quite a few times. The problem with team number 3 is I don't think they've built in enough levels of uniqueness to kind of put them head and shoulders above any other team in the next set of games.
Yeah, because to that point, I think number 12 is unique. We are unique. Number 1 is unique, but for the wrong reasons.
I got you, family.
So I would say if we're going like as far as unique builds that have a chance of really exploding. Number 5, you don't normally see CD and Higgins. That's fair.
You don't normally see that.
So that's one of the things I like about this draft.
And here's the thing too, Joe.
It was a very sharp draft.
Here in underdog,
number 1, really no one blew it.
Here in underdog, you're looking at T. Higgins being pulled up into the 2nd round because on DraftKings he's sitting there in the 3rd round. So when you look at the kind of variation that the teams have between, and this is why we say, there's going to be a lot of people out there that are pushing underdog only. Money is money. Make it wherever you can.
That's right.
Looking at I think this is an interesting kind of experiment to kind of look at and say, okay, in PPR, Higgins, this is what I'm looking at. In the PPR league, Higgins is sitting in the 3rd round. In a half PPR league, he's sitting in the 2nd round. That doesn't track. That doesn't, that disparity, it tracks to a degree, but it doesn't track so much. Is that why?
Well, the one who really doesn't track is Drake London. Is ADP for underdog was 13. and for DraftKings, it's like 30.
Yeah,
Drake London is a possession receiver, not a touchdown guy. Like he should be flipped for sure, and neither one of which should be anywhere near it.
We'll get sniped. I think when we go on air and we get sniped, it causes, there was the one episode that it caused a little bit of a panic, but
since then we've been better.
I think that when we look at and let's look at a little bit at the running backs on the board. RM mentioned the running backs here. I'm looking at a build here, and I think this was done really well by Team 10. Team 10 has a good balance.
Yes, they do.
While we're not huge fans of McCaffrey or James Cook, there is a story and a narrative that you can write that those two guys should have elite production. And coming off, you have correlation between Puka and Marvin Harrison. You come back, you have Jordan Addison and Waddle. I don't know what quarterback they took. I'm assuming they might have taken Tua at some point in time as well. Maybe JJ. I don't think JJ McCarthy at all. But that's a nice build as well. Then we're coming down here.
They did take Tua.
Okay. Then we come over to another team, and this is not, looking at our team right now. Then you come over to team number 3. Now, team number 3, the start of Barkley and Taylor is nice. Pulling in Trey McBride, where he pulled in Trey McBride.
Team 2 is Barkley and Taylor.
Makes it kind of unique in a way, but the 4 wide receivers he got all could have really good years. They could all be plus 1,000 wide receivers, plus 70 receptions, and a couple of touchdowns. I don't think any wide receiver that team drafted, though, has huge touchdown upside outside of potentially DK Metcalf. So in a half PPR league, I am more concerned to get that touchdown upside a little bit with the receptions. But that's why, like, a guy like T. Higgins is kind of weird, because you would think that in a league like DraftKings that still rewards touchdowns and still rewards more points for receptions, that T. Higgins should be more consistently drafted in the second round. But here's the thing, Joe. In DraftKings, what's happening, and the reason why T. Higgins is getting pushed down that board, is because Josh Allen, Lamar, and Jane Daniels are being overdrafted. So there is a little bit of a playground game being played there where T falls, and this is actually where his value is. This pick of T is probably, when we start Best Ball Mania season, is where T. Higgins is going to be drafted. So
because London will fall out, and there's a chance Tyreek is in jail. So
if
you add all that up.
If you can get T in the 3rd round, absolutely every time, click T. Hey, family, that's us. I love it. Aggressive with round 1, Ashton Genty. The Ashton Genty round 1, Bowers, Burrow round 2 is a little bit odd, but when we consider, Joe Burrow, that guy's overdrafting Burrow. Probably been in a lot of drafts where he saw the stack, won the stack, built the stack, and then didn't worry about it, because he knew that he wasn't going to get Joe Burrow probably in round 4.
Or Chase Brown in the comeback, but it did let us Monte Adams.
I think he would have got Burrow in round 4, but here's the problem. And this is why, everybody who's watching, this is why it's really why the Jamar Chase at number 1 might not be the pick that you want. Here's why.
It's more, especially in best ball.
In best ball, I'm not saying Jamar is going to have an unelite season. I still think that he has the potential to go for like 15 touchdowns and 1,400 yards, and it is what it is. But what I have been seeing is, when we talk about uniqueness, there's 2 factors. If you remember the last time we drafted Jamar at number 1 overall, we didn't get Joe Burrow. And honestly, that team isn't very unique, because a lot of teams have Jamar Chase without Joe Burrow, because a lot of players that are at that top half of the board are willing to sacrifice to get Joe Burrow, so the other player
who is with Burrow than without, though,
doesn't get him. For me, this is where that uniqueness comes in at. Let's say you don't take Chase 1 of 1 overall. Let's say you take Bijan 1 of 1 overall. and seeing where Joe Burrow's value is here, you might be getting a competitive advantage if you were to take, let's say, Gibbs, let's take Bijan, 1 of 1 overall, grab Higgins and Burrow. That way, you have a little bit of a leg up on the Burrow owners who just have Burrow and Chase. And if T starts to outperform at any one stretch of the game, then I think that you are going to be doing better. What I hate is the forced stack. Exactly, family. The forced stack, it's gonna hurt you. When you force Joe Burrow too early, it's gonna hurt you. But if you don't force Joe Burrow, you might not get him.
And that's part of that's the bot's point about why it's not great having Chase there.
That's the danger.
Guys, we love today. It was a great team. We liked it. I really like this team. Glad to be back on Underdog, finally getting loading up.
I can see that, family. I can see that being your team.
We will see you guys here
Monday 3:45.
That's right. Click like and subscribe, y'all.
Standard Time. Peace out, everyone.